Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. Today, I bring you Thom Shea. Before I bring on my guest, I need to share something important. For years, I struggled to feel confident around the type of people that I spend much of my time with. Successful people, millionaires, CEOs, and leaders. Part of it was mindset, but also part of it is how I looked. Look good, feel good, as the saying goes. And I didn't look good. I didn't have clothes that made me feel confident. So I started buying expensive shirts, but then I had to get them tailor fit to me and athletic build. Then I discovered a new shirt. It's not only designed by athletes for athletes, it's designed to fit an athlete's body type. And it's made of athletic material. It's like putting on your favorite workout shirt, but it's a business shirt. It's machine washable and wrinkle free, which is a total deal breaker for me. I hate high maintenance clothing. And it looks better than the expensive shirts that I used to buy, and it even costs less. Now I feel confident that I'm wearing good-looking, well-fitted clothing that's designed to fit me. You can try one on yourself, totally risk-free because it's free shipping for you, one of my listeners. Just visit their website, stateandliberty.com, and use the discount code SUCCESS. That's State and Liberty, S-T-A-T-E, stateandliberty.com, and use the discount code SUCCESS. Returns and exchanges are totally free within 30 days, so there's absolutely zero risk for you to try one on. Again, go to stateandliberty.com and use the discount code SUCCESS. Thom is a retired Navy SEAL and the founder and CEO of Adamantine Alliance, a leadership, team building, and training organization dedicated to rapid, sustainable growth for his clients. Thom conducts training seminars and keynote presentations throughout the nation and serves as a strategic advisor for leaders, executives across the globe. I'll read that one again. Thom conducts training seminars and keynote presentations throughout the nation and serves as a strategic advisor for leaders and executives across the globe. Thom has trained hundreds of individuals to master his 5 pyramids of human performance and led each through the intense training of what he calls performance in the margin, the space where all performance occurs. Before founding Adamantine Alliance, Thom served 23 years with distinguished valor as a Navy SEAL. During his military career, he served in 3 wars, ultimately leading a team of Navy SEALs into Afghanistan in 2009, where he earned a Silver Star, Bronze Star with Valor, Army Commendation with Valor, and his 2nd Combat Action Medal. As usual, if you don't have time to listen to the entire episode, but if you hear something you like and you don't have a chance to write it down, make sure you grab your free copy of the action plan. Just go to jimharshawjr.com/action. Thom, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
So we've had a great conversation off air. I told you in email yesterday, I'm really excited to do this interview. There's so much to dive into here. So can we first, let's just hear a little bit about your background, Thom. Where did you grow up, and kind of give us the 30,000-foot view of how you got from there to where you're at now?
Oh, I don't think it's linear, but so I grew up in a small town in Indiana, southeast Indiana, called Brookville, and it's about a mile long, and it's a farming community, and grew up at a time when you could actually go outside as a kid and be safe. We carried guns in our cars, knives on our sides, and nobody cared, and you would never use them. So I grew up in an environment, even when I was 9, I had a trap line, and most people don't even know what that is. I used to trap animals and skin their hide off them and sell the hide for money. And that led to me being very comfortable with being outside. And my first, which is a great conversation to have with you, is my first failure was I went to West Point. And in my third year, I failed out. And then that led to, what is it like to actually be at the bottom and recover? And after about a year and a half in recovery, if you want to call it that, I had a great mentor at the time, and he asked me a simple question from the brink of after failure is, now that you've hit bottom, what would you like to do? And I always wanted to be a SEAL.
Who was this mentor? Was he a friend or a coach or a teacher?
He was a family friend that had been a SEAL during kind of precursor to SEALs during World War II. And I'd just grown up with him in my life, and he was a mentor. And to me, a mentor is somebody that's committed to you. And I'll just distinguish it that way at this point. And he said, hey, you got to do what's always there in your mind to do. It doesn't matter if you think you're going to make it or not, but you got to pursue it. And I went and signed up for SEAL training, and I could not pass the test to get in upon signing, and I couldn't even swim. But I'd always wanted to do it. And then I became a SEAL. And that track of trying to become a SEAL was very difficult. But that's this 80,000 foot view.
Yeah. What can you tell us a little bit about that journey to become a SEAL? So you couldn't swim. How did you go through, that process? And were you an athlete in high school? Were there any sort of background that you had?
Yeah, I was a really good track athlete, got recruited, and I was good at football. I was a wrestler, but probably not at the level that you were or are, but grew up athletic and sport all the time. Went to West Point and played football there. And so I had the athlete mindset of relentless practice. That is what I took into learning how to swim. Is I just knew that if I got in the pool and got coaching, I would either die or it would work itself out. And so after I signed up for SEAL training, it probably took me 6 months to practice every day until I figured out the technique that they wanted and able to pass the test. And then getting into SEAL training is all performance based. It's not political. It's not anything else. It's, can you break out in the top 10% of the people that they select to go to training? And how deep you want me to go into that is entirely up to you.
You know what, Tom? Everybody loves to hear about SEAL training, so let's hear a little bit about it. That's part of the allure of hearing a story from a SEAL.
Well, I came in the SEAL teams at a time when they were undermanned. They're not undermanned now, so they don't allow people to have so many attempts at making it through. So I started out in class 195, and every SEAL training class has a number. And my first class was 195. I made it to Hell Week and got a concussion. And basically Hell Week is the 5th week of training, and it's the time in training that you go for 6 days and only get about 2 hours of sleep the entire time. Wow. And they just break you down. So my first attempt at Hell Week, I got a concussion. And then I was rolled back to the beginning of training in class 196, made it to Hell Week and dislocated my shoulder. Normally, that's the number of opportunities that you get is just 2. But at the time, they allowed me to stay because I would not quit. And I'd proven myself, through the training that I wasn't going to quit on me or my team. So they said, all right, heal your shoulder and you can start over. So I started over. I got to miss a class, started over class 198, and got to Hell Week and got pneumonia.
Oh.
And it was easier to recover from a shoulder separation than it was pneumonia. And so I didn't fully recover from the pneumonia, started again, class 199, made it to Hell Week, and woke up in the hospital. And all 5 of my lobes were about 40% filled with fluid. And I was kicked out of training entirely.
Wow.
Normally, the wait to get back is 2 years. And I just submitted a request to go back every day for 9 months. And I think I wore the admiral down, and he goes, okay, just get out of here. And so I went back to SEAL training in class 207. And we started out with 111 men. And 6 months later, 11 of us graduated.
Wow.
And that's why I love the idea of talking to you about what happens during and after failure that really distinguishes people.
So why do you think you were able to move through that failure and keep pushing forward? So, I've heard you talk about abandon your why, and that not being relevant or necessarily important, at least not the first thing. Did you have a why? And if not, what was it that kept you going?
The key, I wish I could explain it quickly, and I will try. I know this to be true now in 27 years of 23 being a SEAL, and now 4 in the business community of teaching leaders to lead. There is something very common, and here's what it is. There are 3, I call, pillars to success. The first one is what I call honor your word. Whatever comes out of your mouth, have it be true for you, and have your thoughts be true for you. The second pillar of success is really what we're going to talk, I think, failure, but I call it never give up. So if you can honor your word and never give up on honoring your word, you're going to get there. You'll find a solution. And the third pillar is just relentless practice. If you have those 3 elements in your life, you're going to succeed. You're going to fail probably 1,000 times, but on 1,001, you'll get there. And so the why conversation, I did that podcast on because everybody thinks why is important. Why changes with the weather. It changes with your attitude. And it's important, but it's like adding creamer to your coffee. It's not the basis of the whole drink. It's just the flavor that makes it nice. But what's most important is you got to be committed. You have to be committed. And the commitment has to be simple. Like, I'm going to make it through SEAL training, or I'm going to win, Division I weight classification, or whatever how you describe wrestling.
Sure.
If you aren't committed to winning, your why will make no difference. So I know I jumped around the subject there, but what made the difference to me is I was committed. And if other people were not interested in my commitment, you kick them out of your life. But I see that in everybody that is successful. It's just this clear distinction called commitment. They don't know how the hell they're going to do it. They're just going to find a solution. And when you rely on those 3 pillars, honor your word, never give up, and relentless pursuit, and then be committed, well, you're going to get there.
I think what holds a lot of people back is they don't know how they're going to do it. So they're afraid to make the commitment, right? Have you seen that? I mean, they say, okay, yes, I want to get there. I want to make $1 million. I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to have a better marriage or whatever the case might be, or build that business. They say, I don't know how to do it, so I'm not going to commit to it until I know how to do it. Do you see that?
Yeah, I see it in the business world constantly. I didn't see it in the SEAL community. And here's why. In the SEAL community, you commit to a mission without knowing how you're going to accomplish it. And then because you're committed, there will be about 1 billion how-to solutions become readily available because you are committed. In the business community, it seems they wait to be committed until they have a solution. That's why it takes them 6 years to find a solution. And then the solution that they were researching becomes irrelevant because the business has shifted. So I call it a paradigm where you're trying to solve a problem prior to being committed. And it's just a terrible, inefficient way to operate as a human being.
How do you figure out what to commit to for the person who's listening and saying, okay, I want to commit to something, but there's, in the real, when I was an athlete, Tom, when I was a wrestler, like it was very simple. Like I was like win the national championship. That was what I was committed to doing. But out in the real world, it's like we've got relationships, we've got our health and fitness, we've got our maybe kids, our marriage, our job, making money, paying the mortgage, all these things. It's like, how do we determine what it is? Because I think a lot, I know from my discussions with people, from my coaching, that a lot of people are not sure what's next for them. They don't know what the right next goal is for them.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. There is no right next goal. There isn't. There's just something that wakes you up in the morning that scares I hate the cuss, but scares the shit out of you. If you can't commit to that thing that scares you, like national championship, if it's not scaring you, it's not good enough. So you have to have those big hairy goals that are scary. That's the goal that you should pursue. And I think it's unique to everybody. Even if your scary goal is to, we were talking offline, do a TEDx, then do it. Commit to that. Don't wait. Don't wait for the right time, because as well as anybody knows, there'll never be the right time. Like it's never the right time to train. It's never the right time to get married. It's never the right time to invest in the market. Mm-hmm. It's never the right time to buy a house. It's never the right time.
Right.
Just pick it. And then that's you. That's who you are. The moment you pick a goal, that's how you measure yourself against life.
Yeah. And for the listener who wants to go deeper on that, Bill Burnett in episode 124 talked about designing your life. He talks a little bit more about that. There's not like one right ideal life or one right thing that you should do, so you can explore different things and make that commitment. And I want to go back, Tom, to one thing that you mentioned a few minutes ago about honoring your word. And you said something following that. You said your thoughts have to be true to you. Talk about that.
Yeah. Another way of saying that may be authenticity, or be authentic with yourself. Don't lie. Hey, don't be flippant. Hey, I want to fly like Superman. That's not the goal-centered thing, because you're not authentic about that. That's not honoring your word. And another way to look at honoring your word is make it even simpler. When you say something, have that distinguish you as a human being. Like if I say, I'm going to call you at 8, that's how I define myself. As opposed to, hey, yeah, I'll give you a call at 8, and then for some reason it's not a priority for me, and I call you at 8:10. I'm not honoring my word because I don't hold what I say to be true. So that maybe it's a fine line. I just look at it as the premise to it all is when you say something, have it be true. And
I know you talk a lot about internal dialogue. How does one master internal dialogue? Because this stems, I think, from our thoughts, and it's this sort of subconscious line of thinking and this internal dialogue that we have that's always going. How do we, when did you start to think about that as important, and how did you master it?
Let me define it first. The basic way to define internal dialogue is simply what you say to yourself about what you're doing, or your interpretation of who you are and what you're doing. How that plays out is how you process life using language. Everybody has that. Every human being on the planet processes things through their senses, and then they give it meaning using words. Everybody has that. Nobody tries to practice it. How you master it is first to recognize, and here's how I teach people to master it. And it's the first lesson that I wanted my kids to learn in my book. And I've trained, like more than 200 people in this. And here's what it is. Here's how you master internal dialogue. Make a commitment to do something in the morning, right after you wake up, and at night, right before you go to bed. I kind of preempt the commitment that you're going to do push-ups, sit-ups, and squats at those 2 periods of time. And then begin to write down every single reason that you're not going to do it. And I make people do it for 3 weeks, because in the first week, you can pretty much overcome anything. In the second week, reality starts hitting you in the face. And in the third, it's tougher. So to date, over 700 people have attempted lesson 1 of what I call honoring your word at night and in the morning. And only 32 people have been able to complete it, because the language that you're processing talks you out of everything. And here are the top 4 reasons why people aren't successful. The first reason, and I wish I had come up with these prior to the people doing this, but so this is the kickback from everybody. The first reason is I forgot. Mm-hmm. That's an internal process or language that really stops people everywhere. I forgot.
And these are 4 things that you've heard from clients or people who have taken the challenge. Is that right?
Yeah, the 700 people that have taken lesson 1.
Great. All right.
I make them write down their reasons. I forgot. And it's subtle, seductive, believable, and I can convince everybody, hey, the reason why I didn't show up is because I forgot. You're like, oh, gosh, what are you going to say to the guy?
Right.
But how they process that with language kills them. Oh, you forgot. Oh, you forgot to call. You forgot to use the map at the end of the rainbow to dig up the gold. I forgot. So that's killed a lot of people. The second reason is pain. It hurts. That's a language process, because you have about 50,000 different meanings of pain because you're a wrestler. Pain doesn't stop you. It's nice information, but it doesn't stop athletes so much. It stops the rest of the world. It hurts. Well, I can't do it. To a wrestler, you're like, yeah, I have not spent a day in my life not in pain. Just deal with it, Right. Same thing in running and being a SEAL. I don't remember a day in the past 27 years that I haven't had something hurt. So pain is the second reason. The third one is support. Like my wife doesn't support me, or my girlfriend or my boyfriend or my friends don't support me, so I don't have to do it. So it's, again, subtle, seductive, and believable. Mm. And the fourth one is an interesting one called, and it's the greatest destructive internal dialogue, and everybody uses it everywhere. It's called, this is stupid. And when I use that internal dialogue, I can talk everybody and even myself out of doing something.
Sure.
And so that's how I let people see what happens when internal dialogue is there. And then mastering it is seeing that it's there and then doing it anyway.
It's very convicting to hear these 4 things, because all of us know that we've used or thought of using all of these at some point in our life. I forgot. We use the excuse of pain. You use the excuse of lack of support, or use the excuse that it's stupid. And you can use that in relationships, personal, health, fitness, wellness, exercise, money, business, taking a risk, trying to get to the next level at anything you're trying to do. It's easy to pull on one or multiple levers, even just a little bit, to ease that, let us off the hook of that commitment.
Yeah. And that's, everybody has access to what I call their internal dialogue. And maybe only 10% maybe 20% of the people actively try and practice mastering it. So the other 80% are stuffed. When the weather changes, or they're in pain, or they don't get support, they're stuffed. They cannot accomplish anything. And the 20% that master it, when they're committed, all you can do is get out of the way, because they're going to come in. Which is what I loved about being a SEAL, is the first thing SEALs had is they were going to get committed very quickly. And once they're committed, the enemy's done. There's no way to stop a SEAL platoon or a team when they're committed. It doesn't matter if your buddy dies, you're still going to get the job done. In business, most people lack that. But you don't have to be a SEAL to be committed. Just be committed.
For the listener, imagine what you can accomplish if you're committed. Imagine that life, that dream, that hope, that wish that you have. If you commit to it, imagine how possible that is for it to come true.
Yep. Which I love your topic, because it doesn't mean that you're not going to fail. Being committed doesn't mean you're not going to fail. It probably means you're going to fail often, and you're going to want to give up, and you're going to break down. Everybody that's been good at anything has probably failed more than they've succeeded. Like, I would assume, unless you won every time you wrestled, even in practice, the failures outweighed the successes.
Yeah, absolutely. When you obviously so to put that in perspective for the listener, like, obviously I had a winning record at a high level, but really what I considered success was winning championships and winning the tough matches, and the stretch goals, right? The high level things. And I my goal would be an All-American. I tried 4 times. I failed 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the number of failures to successful people, I think it's cool that you said that. I always call it a 20-80 rule. So it's always close to 20-80. I will fail 80% of the time to get 20% success.
Yeah.
Or 75, 25, but it's close.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the truth. And so for the listener, again, I want you to understand, we're talking to somebody who's achieved incredible success. Obviously, a Navy SEAL, we have at least a sense of what that means from the outside looking in anyway. And failure is, like I've said before many times, is a necessary step on that path to success. Thom, how do SEALs in the SEAL community, how do you deal with failure? Is there a process, or give us some insight on that?
It's the only community that actually plans for it and embraces it. And as a SEAL in training, they never allow you to win. And that's also another reason why so few people can tolerate it, is because most people want to win. They want the feeling of winning. They want the reinforcement. And then in the SEAL community, they decided a long time ago that the only way to be successful in combat is to constantly, in training, embrace failure, because during failure, you get to see what the real problems are. In success, you cover up all the things. And so everything you do pushes something to the brink. You go out and shoot a gun until the gun falls apart to see how many rounds the gun can handle. Physically, they push you until you aren't very capable to see what you're going to do when you've hit the failure point, and then learn, okay, my arms aren't strong enough. Good. You've learned once you've hit failure that your arms aren't strong enough. Then you go back and make them stronger. And leadership is the same way. Here's how they test leadership is they mock kill the leader so that he can't lead, because the greatest, way to test a leader is when he's not there.
Yeah.
Not when you're actively there pushing buttons. That's not the greatest form of leadership. The greatest form of leadership is if, okay, the plan's all laid out and the guys are supposed to be doing what they're doing, take the leader out of the equation and see what happens. And they do that all the time, and they fire a lot of leaders because the team can't function without them, and which is a form of failure. So everything in the SEAL community is always push it to failure to learn.
What is you talk about performance in the margin. I mentioned that in the bio. What is performance in the margin?
The margin are the times when things are not working. It's like I always say, I could paint the picture this way. Okay, you and I are committed to being that you be the number one wrestler in the world. I just want to pin down a commitment. Now, the next step after you have a commitment is the margin. It's gray space. Because I'm committed to you being the number one wrestler in the world. And then the only time we know that you've been successful is when the gold medal is on your chest. So between commitment and getting the reward or award is the margin. The space between where I am and where I want to go is what I call the margin. And that's where your life happens. That's when it's gray, it's clear, it's disturbing, you're practicing, you're tired, everything hurts. You're having to learn things that are difficult, and you're still trying to make money. And in that margin, that space between here and there, that's where everything happens. But you have to be committed, and you have to constantly try to get to where you're going.
And Thom, you talked about the 5, again, in the bio I mentioned, the 5 pyramids of performance. What are those?
I was looking for
some of those, but yeah,
I was looking for something that everybody had. And what I found during my research, and this was, like 6 or 7 years ago, everybody has a physical life. Everybody has like an intellectual life or a learning life. Everybody is in the pursuit of wealth or value. So those are the first 3. So your physical life, your intellectual life, and your wealth life. And then everybody has a life of relating to other people. I call that relationships. And everybody has a spiritual life. Even if they don't believe, it's still a way to define spirituality. So those 5 areas, everybody that I've ever met across the planet is in the pursuit of something measurable in those 5 areas. That's what I call the 5 pyramids of performance.
Excellent. And for the listener, I will have those documented in the action plan. Make sure you grab your copy, jimharshawjr.com/action. And there's going to be a lot of great tips and tactics in this action plan. Thom, the listeners like to get something concrete, something actionable, something they can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to really start moving towards their goals. Can you share an action item that the listener can do in the next day or 1 to 2 days to really start taking the next step in their life?
I would go back to what we talked about in lesson 1. It's something that you can do and see measurable improvement or not improvement in 24 hours. And here's what I think it's the greatest gift to give anybody is access to what's stopping them. So in the next 24 hours, attempt the best you can right after you get out of bed to do 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, and 10 squats. Attempt to. And then also at the time when you're doing those 3 things, try to listen to the reasons that you would talk yourself out of doing them.
Yeah.
If you can hear those reasons, you are going to have the greatest life in the world. If you can hear them. Because when the moment you hear them and can write them down, like the 4 reasons that we discussed, you actually have an opportunity not to have those reasons stop you. And then do it again at night, because the reasons in the morning and the reasons at night are uniquely different. And now you've attempted to do something that you've committed to during the hardest times for humans to do anything. It's when you're tired and stiff and exhausted and your give a shit factor is really low. Mm-hmm. Try to hold a commitment during those times because the reasons really come out. If you can find one reason that comes out, you'll see that reason everywhere in your life. Like it hurts, or this is stupid. If this is stupid is your reason, you'll see it everywhere in your life. So every time you hear this is stupid, go do the thing that you say is stupid. If you just do that for the rest of your life, you'll be the happiest person in the world.
For the listener, if you've listened to my podcast for any length of time, back in episode 89, Josh Spodek talked about, actually, that was the second time I had Josh on. I had him on in an earlier episode as well, but he talked about what he calls a SIDCHA, self-imposed daily challenging healthy activity. Again, self-imposed daily challenging healthy activity. He's given it the term SIDCHA. And this is something that inside my private Facebook group, just for my coaching clients and guys who have been through my program, Reveal Your Path, we do a SIDCHA. We do a SIDCHA every month. And this month it's 50 man makers a day. And those are sort of a burpee push-up lunge combination. And that's it. The idea is you do these, whether it's your birthday or whether it's a holiday or whether it's whether you feel sick or feel great. It's just, or you're too busy to do them. Or you're in pain, right? All these things. I forgot. Mm-hmm. This is too much. This is too painful. I don't have the support in my life, or this is stupid. Whenever those things come up, you still have to do that SIDCHA, and that's really the concept behind Josh's SIDCHA, and that's really what you're talking about here again today. So that's great advice, Thom. How about a tool or a tactic? And maybe you just told us, maybe it's that tactic, but maybe it's a tool, a tactic, a technology, a supplement, or something like that you do or that you use that makes you more effective.
Wow, that's a good question.
Maybe it's an app. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's a certain type of goal setting that you do or planning for your day, etc.
Yeah, and I do this because I think it's, I know now it's more important than anything in the world, is if you have somebody in your life who you're committed to, whether you're a man listening or a woman listening, so your spouse or your lover, or if you don't have them, say your kids, for whatever reason, that they're the only ones left in your life. For 10 minutes a day, listen to them to find out what they're committed to that day. The art and practice of listening to somebody who you are related to or committed to, the factor of growth in your life will, it's actually measured out to be a 7x factor. And I like X factoring because it makes things more efficient. Listen, shut your mouth and listen committedly to what they're doing, and then help them throughout the day. But 10 minutes, I ask my clients to do that, and the miserable failure. Nobody listens to people they're committed to. If you do that, everything gets better.
And for the listener, again, we talk about goals. Number one is relationships. That's the number one goal that I talk about setting. Relationships, self, health, and wealth. Those are the four. We always start with relationships. So this is a great action item around that relationship goal. Thom, I'm going to have a link to your book, Unbreakable. I have not read that yet. I just got connected with you not long ago, so I haven't had a chance to, but I am going to add that to my reading list, no doubt. And I recommend the listener do the same. And I'm going to have a link to Thom's book, Unbreakable, what's the subtitle? Unbreakable.
A Navy SEAL's Way of Life.
Navy SEAL's Way of Life. So I'm going to have that linked in the action plan. But is there another book that has impacted you that you might recommend for the listener?
Yes, and it's an old book, because sometimes people that are older that have had difficulty write really well. So, and everybody's heard of it. The book called Think and Grow Rich is useful to anybody willing to use it. Period. It is one of the most useful books to read if you're interested in attaining results.
And for the listener, I have heard Thom say making $1 million is the easiest thing in the world. So this is a guy who's lived it, and so it's a great book recommendation. I love that book. So thanks for that, Thom. And Thom, thank you for making time to come on the show.
Well, hey, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you.
And for the listener, as always, you can grab that copy of the action plan. Just go to jimharshawjr.com/action. And until next time, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success.